Welcome to the Geek, the History Geek. I'm Mr. Hodges. Each year, as we start a new year, many of us look back to the past year and make resolutions to make changes. Many of us encourage our family, our friends, and other people to do this as well. But why do we do this? Why in January? And where do some of our New Year's traditions come from? Come join me as we explore this cool topic. Time to suit up. Nice. I guess it's time to begin. Why do we do the things we do at New Year's? Where do our New Year's traditions come from? Truthfully, most people could not answer these questions. It is time to take a deeper look at this holiday. Well, to start with, did you know that the name for the month of January comes from an ancient Roman god? No, I am not kidding. The god's name is Janus, or what we call Janus. Janus was the god of beginnings, endings, transitions, and time. He is also the god of gates and doorways too, which is appropriate when you move in and out of places, including, well, different periods of time, such as from, last year into a new year. In Latin, the month Januaris, or January, is named after Janus. This is very appropriately named since the month is the transition into a new beginning, a new year. The Emperor Julius Caesar made January 1st the beginning of the new year, beginning around 46 BC. This happened with the reform of the calendar that was used by the Romans. Now, Janus is a really neat Roman god. He is represented as having two faces on one head, and one is looking forward and the other is looking backward. This has him looking to the future and looking to the past. This is very fitting since January is a time of both looking forward and backward. Did you know that the celebration of New Year's was not always done during January? In some cultures, it was done closer to the vernal equinox or the beginning of spring. While the Roman Julian calendar changed the date for the New Year to January, with the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century, this would cause some changes. By the 7th century, many European countries celebrated Christmas Day as the beginning of the new year. However, by the 9th century, that is, during the 800s AD, the date had been moved back into March by the Catholic Church. New Year's Day was specifically celebrated on March 25th, 9 months before Christmas, on Annunciation Day, or the religious day that recognized when the angel Gabriel made his revelation to Mary. This date for the new year continued to be recognized for many years across Europe and in the British colonies in North America up until 1752. So what caused the change? Well, by 1582, issues with the accuracy of the calendar had led to some changes. The Catholic Church began to use the corrected Gregorian calendar and moved the date for New Year's back to January 1st. Due to the Reformation that had started in 1517, this led to different calendars being used in Europe. So from 1582 to 1752, two different calendars were being used and two different New Year's dates were being celebrated across Europe. In 1750, this would begin to change when the British Parliament passed a law moving the dates on their calendar to align with the new Gregorian calendar. In 1752, Great Britain would adopt the Gregorian calendar, and over the next 200 years, due to the spread of the British Empire, this would bring the calendar and its holidays to much of the rest of the world. It is important to note that some of the cultures and religions today celebrate New Year's at other times. People of the Islamic and Jewish faiths celebrate the beginning of their New Year in the fall, while the Chinese celebrate their New Year at the end of January or the beginning of February. Now, the practice of making New Year's resolutions actually goes way back in time. The first recorded New Year's celebration goes back to about 4,000 years ago with the Babylonians. They were the first people that we know that celebrated the New Year. Although this was done during the time period when they were planting crops, which was done in mid-March, not in January. During their 11-day religious festival of Akitu, the people would make promises to their gods. These promises are considered the origin of our New Year's resolutions. How cool is that? Now fast forward to the Romans. The Romans felt that Janus was a very significant god since he symbolically looked into the past and into the future. They would offer sacrifices and made promises of good conduct for the new year to this deity. Again, this is much like our New Year's resolutions. For the early Christians, however, the first day of the new year became the traditional occasion for thinking about one's past mistakes and resolving to do and be better in the future. By 1740, the famous English clergyman John Wesley, who was the founder of Methodism, created a special service to be held on New Year's Eve or on New Year's Day. This was done as an alternative to the sinful and often rowdy New Year's celebrations that had ties to pagan religious practices. Now, we can see a lot of connections to our modern holiday and New Year's traditions by looking to the past. The early Roman New Year's celebrations were conducted by offering sacrifices to Janus, but in addition, they also decorated their homes with greenery, specifically using laurel branches, and they also exchanged gifts. Many Romans would attend rowdy and raucous parties where they would feast, drink, and make merry. Some of these things might sound very similar to our modern holiday season. During the colonial period in the American colonies, many different cultures tied food to the New Year's celebration. German, Swiss, and Dutch immigrants, common in the colonies of Pennsylvania, New York, and in Virginia, would eat pork and sauerkraut as part of their New Year's celebration. They felt that it brought good luck in the new year. In the southern colonies, a dish called Hoppin' John, consisting of rice, black-eyed peas, onion, and slices of bacon or ham, once again, pork, was commonly served with greens on New Year's Day. As these immigrants moved and settled in new places across the country, these ideas and traditions were carried with them. British immigrants also brought other traditions that stay with us today. One of these is welcoming the new year in and sending the old year out. This was often done through parties and food. Interestingly, one English tradition dating back centuries has the head of the house opening up the door of the house at midnight and leaving it open till the last stroke of midnight, when they would quietly close the door. This was to let out the old year and to bring in the new year. What would New Year's be without the singing of Auld Lang Syne? The tradition of singing Auld Lang Syne dates back into the 18th century. However, many people do not know the words nor the origins of this song. The name means for old time's sake, and the song was an old Scottish folk tune that was common in the British Isles. It was a common tradition for guests at New Year's, at the end of the party, to stand in a circle and sing this well-known English song. Now, in 1788, Robert Burns began writing down the words to traditional British folk songs, and Auld Lang Syne was one of those. In 1799, the words were paired with the music we know today, and it was published by George Thompson. This song did come to the U.S., but it was not a widespread tradition till the age of radio. A musician by the name of Guy Lombardo played this song at the 1929 New Year's Eve celebration at New York's Roosevelt Hotel. This song would become popular and become the band's signature tune, and a U.S. New Year's tradition was born. Now, despite the many religious roots, the roots of New Year's traditions and resolutions today are, well, mostly secular, that is, non-religious in nature. For you, perhaps, now is a good time to take stock of what went well last year and what you might like to change or to do better over the course of this year. Regardless of whether you make any resolutions or not, I hope you have enjoyed learning why the first month of the year is named January, and the origins of some New Year's traditions and the origins of making New Year's resolutions. Perhaps now you can see how closely we are tied in our daily lives to history, even, well, very ancient history, without us even knowing it. Well, I guess for my New Year's resolution, I am planning on visiting some more historic places and creating some new episodes of Did You Know? I think that would be a pretty good start. I also want to wish you a happy new year and a very good year ahead. Now, I cannot possibly cover everything about the history of New Year's traditions, so if you want to know more, I urge you to research it for yourself. As always, if you've liked this video, I would encourage you to, share it with others, and please vote for more history by giving it a like. I want to take a moment to thank all of the people that have supported the channel by subscribing, and urge new viewers or those that have not yet subscribed to please do so. Be sure to click on the bell to receive all notifications for future videos. Well, that's all for now. So until the next time when I ask the question, did you know? I am Mr. Hodges, and this is the History Geek.
Should old acquaintance be forgot?